rolling?
Yep.
Finn is exhausted. This is his roadmap to success. Now, he's a great dog. He has actually a pretty mellow disposition for a Greyhound, but he still needs more exercise than he's probably getting now. So I'd like to see the Guardian start a journal, and then each time that you're exercising him, if he just runs around, count the number of laps he does around the yard. Count those up and then write those down in the journal. I'd like to try to do that at least twice a day. If we can do it more, I think the more exercise he gets, the better he's going to feel. We're going to be able to unload all this pent-up anxiety that I think is come from a lack of, he's getting exercise, I just don't think he's getting a sufficient amount of exercise. Now, I'd like the Guardian to really focus on what I call passive training. Every time Finn comes to her, I want her to pet him and say the word come, especially when he does it on his own accord. Now, normally I also would practice petting with a purpose, which is we ask the dog to sit. It's hard for greyhounds to sit in general, but you can use the passive training to also reward him for laying down. So every time he lays down, even if you can't get to him because you're obstructed, just say down, or whatever the word is that means lay down. So if we say it within 3 seconds of him laying down, after a while he'll start to associate lay down command with the lay down action, and then it's something you can actually get him to start repeating. He's an insecure dog, and I think a lot of it is based on how he was raised. These dogs, if they're raised for running, don't get very much socialization around people or other dogs. Their social skills are really muted. He's not very interested in chasing toys. And then they're around all these other dogs who are also kind of out of balance, and so they hear a lot of dogs barking and whining and doing things that are just probably not the most healthy psychologically, and so it creates a lot of problems for him. Just the lack of exposure, I think, has contributed to his anxiety. Now, I'd also like the Guardian to put an extra water bowl in the main room that they hang out in. He shows some signs of being a little bit dehydrated. Not much, just minor, but we just like to have more water accessible. Hopefully it just will trip and get him thinking about it a little bit more often. Let me see. I'd like to have the Guardian practicing the focus exercise. Now, we do it, this is an unusual way that we did it, so watch the video above, and really all we're going to do is raise the treat up to our eye line, and when he looks at us, go straight towards his mouth and pop it in his mouth and say the word focus. Remember, whenever you're giving a treat, we're going to say the word after it goes into the dog's mouth, not before. We want to keep on practicing that. At first it's just 1 second, and then eventually it's 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and we're going to keep on working with this till within about 7 to 10 days we can have 20 seconds where we're going really slowly with the treat towards his mouth and he's locked in, focused on us. This way we can kind of redirect his attention. If he starts whining or getting anxious or nervous, get him to redirect. Also, dogs look at us for looking in the eye can be considered a challenge, and some dogs, they just won't make eye contact. Lydia was really good to observe that he wasn't giving very much eye contact, which is why the focus exercise will help get him used to looking at us in the eye. Something else you can do is sometimes I'll take a treat and I'll smash it like that, and I'll hold it and let him nibble on it while they're looking at, well, he's not going to do it lying down on the job, but I hold it right here while he's looking at me and letting him nibble on it out of my hand. That's another great way to get him to look and give you some eye contact. What else was I going to go over, Finn? He's treat motivated, but I think that we have a cozy quarters here, and I think that that's amplifying some of his insecurities. Also, the kennel that we have is a really big kennel. It has a wire bottom instead of being a flat surface. It's also on wheels, and it makes a lot of noise. And greyhounds and a lot of sight dogs are very prone to being reactive to sounds. And I think the sounds of him going in there, when he goes in there, he's a big dog himself. It moves a little bit when he tries to go in there. It makes a noise. It's not comfortable to lie on. I think there's just a lot of things about a kennel that are not the right kennel for him. Also, the room itself has a lot of stuff in there. The Guardian is going to declutter, as she said it, and which would be a great thing to do because the more open space that he has, I think the less anxiety he's going to feel. But we also want to teach him, and the Guardian said, being 4, she didn't know if you could teach him. And there was the old adage, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, which is complete baloney. You can teach a dog new tricks from the day they're, as soon as their eyes and ears are open and they can see, till the end of their life, unless they have dementia and some sort of mental block or facility problem. So I'd like her to look for things that she can do to teach him. Teaching him to balance a treat on his nose. That requires a lot of self-control. And just like humans, the more skills that a dog has, the more confident it becomes. When we pass the bar or a medical exam or you graduate high school or college or whatever, you feel a sense of pride because you accomplished something. For him, he doesn't really have a lot of commands and because of his background, we don't know about his background, but I'm guessing he didn't have a lot of play, so his social play skills are pretty light. Are there any dogs that have been by that he enjoys?
You know, he just really doesn't pay attention to dogs at all.
And that's kind of part of the way that these guys are raised, is they don't want them to be socialized.
There's two right next door here, and
they just want to chase the mechanical bunny rabbit that runs around the track, and that's all. And it's kind of a sad life for some of these guys, even if they're a really well champion dog. They don't have much quality of life in terms of play, socialization, and all that. So it's great that he's got into a loving home. But I'd like to see, we try to do a touch exercise, but again, I think that the confined quarters got him a little bit anxious. So the Guardian's going to have someone build a little bit of a box. So as the video we saw above, we were trying to get him to go in and out of the car over and over again. The more repetitions we get for that, the better. Now what I found is at first we had to actually kind of pick up his paw and put it onto that white plastic deal. Then he started putting his second paw up. What I was doing is going behind him and nudging him a little bit just in his hindquarters. I don't want to force him, but with a little bit of light pressure, he was able to put his rear paw on that box and then go in. Now the first time he did that on his own accord, he kind of slipped a little bit off the box or into the car, and that also can cause some stress and anxiety. So if we have something built that's going to be secure in that location, it's going to be big enough where it has a nice area that it's not going to slide, I think he'll get more comfortable. I think it's getting up into it, I think, is the problem for him. And so if we can get him to feel comfortable climbing up into the car, that gives the Guardian the ability to eliminate leaving him home alone for a lot of things. Now she's going to need to order a new kennel, and I should have above here linked instructions on how you can teach a dog to feel good about going into a kennel. You have to go very slow. The Guardian was already onto this, but because the kennel moved, it was the wrong size, and made a lot of noises. I think that's what triggered him on not wanting to go in there. And these guys, as a racing dog, are left in kennels and pens a lot of time, and they are not taught to be in there in a nice, calm, balanced state of mind. They're just kind of shoved in and locked, and then the person walks away. So a lot of positive reinforcement. We'd also like every time that you get a new bully stick or a new toy, he should find it in his kennel. When he walks away from the room, put a treat right in his kennel, right in the beginning, right in the front or a little bit in, so that he can see it. And that way, every time he goes in the kennel, something good and positive happens for him. So I'm hoping that if we expand the available area in the house, that'll lessen a little bit of his anxiety. We get him more exercise, that's going to help him feel more confident and more relaxed. And then being able to take him on rides, he'll be able to spend more time with his Guardian as opposed to being left home alone. Now, I was starting to try to teach him to stay, but I think that he really has a lot of stuff going on, so I think that's a little bit advanced for him right now. So once we get a new kennel, the Guardian can practice putting the treats in there, get him comfortable going in the kennel. But for the most part, we should try to avoid putting him in the kennel till he is very relaxed and going in there. And you can follow the steps where I have basically where I stand in front of the kennel and start moving away. Now, because the Guardian has a little bit of limited mobility, her sister may need to help out with that particular lesson, teaching him that. Well, the idea is we want the dog to understand when you're in the kennel, you can't leave the kennel until you're given permission, and we don't give them permission until they're completely relaxed. And for a lot of dogs, the problem with the kennel is, number one, I'm constrained, and number two, I'm left alone. So the only time that he's in the kennel is when he's left alone. So once he's comfortable going in there, we'd like the Guardian to practice putting him in the kennel, leaving him in the kennel while she stays right there, right next to him. So we can see that she's not leaving him alone, help and wait for him to lie down. As soon as he lies down, open the door and let him out. So he starts to understand, as soon as I lay down, I get freedom. And we can help him eventually lay down and then wait 5 seconds before we let him out, and then 10 seconds, then 15, then 30 seconds, 45, 1 minute, and then go up to 10 or 15 minutes with the door open, or with him laying down, nice and relaxed. We're helping him practice being calm in the kennel. All right, Finn, you got anything else? You look nice and relaxed. We're going to practice a couple other things before we call this a day. But this is Finn's Roadmap to Success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.